In episode number 399 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, we cover Todd McFarlane Spawn movie update.
We also have creator changes for the current Sonic the Hedgehog comic book, including an all-new miniseries.
And we talk about the latest artists to join the BINC Foundation.
All of this and so much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to the award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm your almighty Emperor Kelli.
And I am interviewer Daniel.
Ooh, are you interviewing me on this podcast?
Am.
What are your questions for the Emperor? This is great. This is like that Tiger King special.
How come you were faking against Sam Jackson when you were like, oh, you were like Grandpa Joe in that meme of I'm so weak, and then unlimited power, shoot fucking lightning?
You're talking about Palpatine. I'm Kelli.
So none of that was you.
No, I mean, I probably like, if I appeared weak, it's because I was taking a nap because it did nothing to me. I'm just gonna rest here.
For anyone new to the podcast, the way we format the show is first we go through this week's news. We head into the Patreon shoutouts, which are thank yous to everyone who make the show possible. And then we go into this week, the Brocat Block, which is what Kelli and I have been doing this week, including a couple of comic book reads, since there isn't our regular new comic book day releases, but we do still have comic book news and talk at the very end.
Our first bit of news comes from Thor Ragnarok director Taika Waititi, who is the latest to take a page from Zack Snyder and do a director's live commentary.
So Zack Snyder has started a comic book director trend in more ways than just his films, because last week, about a week or two after Zack Snyder did his, Pedo Perv James Gunn did one as well for Guardians of the Galaxy, and now we're seeing Taika do one. He had a very interesting quote on the kind of quote-unquote research that they did for Thor Ragnarok, and he said, quote, "Here's the thing about me, guys. I did not really do my research. I read one issue of Thor as my research, not in a graphic novel, one of the thin ones. And by the end of it, I was like, well, we're not doing that. Let's not really look at these anymore. Cool art, I love the art, but I can't stand the way everyone talks." End quote. That explains Ragnarok so much.
My brain hurts so much from that. Like, you know that this project is based off comic books. Why are you not researching comic books?
He very loosely adapted the World War Hulk or Planet Hulk
But he
series.
didn't even read it. He just said
Right.
He didn't even read it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. This is why it is the second worst, maybe second worst MCU film. It is fucking terrible. Thor Ragnarok is god-awful, and this is one of those many movies where we point to anytime the MCU sheep come after us, and we're like, your guys' movies are not comic accurate at all. You're not being faithful to the comic books as you think they are. Like, this is not at all the direction that they ever went with.
But my thing is, why would he even say this? Like, somebody somewhere was like, ugh, no,
they don't give a shit.
No, Waititi, or whatever his name is.
Because imagine if Zack Snyder said that quote.
Oh yeah, he would be like murdered, crucified.
There'd be quotes and articles all over the fucking place. Screen Rant would have one. All
billboards.
These fucking places would have one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It'd be absolute insanity. So a fun one, because this, of course, went under everyone's radar. They all just gave it a fucking pass. The director to one of the worst MCU movies. Thought that was kind of funny. But another writer/director is Todd McFarlane with his Spawn film.
He recently spoke to Forbes about the recent rumors that the movie was losing steam.
Todd said, quote, "Those reports were not quite accurate. There is someone, a major talent behind the camera, we had our eyes on, and it didn't work out. It happens, but we didn't lose anyone because we never had them. So we're on the trail of someone else new now."
That's like when your crush turns you down and you're like, we didn't really break up because we were never together, so I'm just going to find somebody else. But your heart is still broken.
That is absolutely Todd right now. You're right. At least there's an update right there on the Spawn movie,
Right.
I think, because a lot of people were wondering, is this thing going to happen? Are we going to get any Spawn movies? And then after, I think 3 months ago, we had reported that Todd said if he doesn't do it this year, he doesn't want to do it at all.
I do it this year or I don't do it at all. This
Exactly.
man is just becoming more and more of a 15-year-old every time I hear about him.
I guess his logic was that every year that they don't do it, it gets more and more difficult because of all the scheduling that is now already set in place, especially for our protagonist, right?
This man picked the wrong year to do it, though, because nothing's happening right now.
Some more McFarlane news this week comes from Boom Studios, who responded to Todd's rallying cry for publishers to unite for the future of comic books, including producing new content, regardless of the printing pause.
We have a quote from President of Publishing and Marketing, Philip Sablik, who told Newsarama, quote, "The industry is better for having him contribute his ideas, knowledge, and solutions to the conversation. Boom Studios has been supportive of a unified industry-wide response till our founder and CEO, Ross Ritchie, issued a letter to our retail partners on March 19th, end quote.
McFarlane's tweets and outcry to go ahead and get everyone on board into either major crossovers. He brought up once again the image of Spawn and Spider-Man together on a gargoyle. All of this, I think, is he's one of the biggest names that have been asking for this. But maybe there is something already happening behind the scenes and they just kind of want to jump on and look as if they were kind of ahead of it all. And McFarlane is that kind of person to do that. And I'm not saying that this is hurting the cause at all. Good for him. Get that conversation going. But I do think it's funny that a lot of these articles, just like when Donny Cates bought that pull box for through a comic shop, and they were like, look what Donny is doing. And I was like, it was started by many other writers already. Like, he just happens, I think, to be the biggest one to do it so far. So I think it's one of those situations as well with Todd McFarlane.
I like how Boom was very quick. We're already doing this, guys. We're here.
They pretty much said what I just said. Like, no, we've been doing this.
Right,
We've been also asking for crossovers and everything. But this is kind of the Boom Studios podcast this week because they have also put up Zoom backgrounds for their line of comic books, including Lumberjanes, Giant Days, Something is Killing the Children, Mouse Guard, and more.
I love that so many, and I mean, what does it really cost them, right? To put up these Zoom things and you just download it and put it in the background. But it's so much fun, especially with all of us having to be at home. Nobody wants to see that stupid window behind me when I'm in conference calls. So I usually just turn off the camera so nobody can see me and they just hear my disembodied voice when I have to chime in for something. But yeah, if I could have a cool background and get away with it or turn myself into a potato, for sure.
And more from Boom Studios as they have signed a 2-year first look deal with Netflix for film and TV adaptations.
This 2-year deal will not begin until January 2021 when its first look deal with the formerly named 20th Century Fox, which is now just 20th Century Studios, from 2013 elapses.
Hopefully that goes quick in January because as we all know, 20th Century Fox is now owned by the Mouse. And I do not want to see Mickey Mouse doing any kind of Mouse Guard cartoons or Something is Killing the Children or anything like that. If it's a Netflix adaptation and we know Netflix can pull off some really good shit, this is really exciting. With stuff like Something is Killing the Children, I expect that to be live action. Mouse Guard would make an amazing animated show. Giant Days would also be great animated, and so would Lumberjanes, as a matter of fact. And Giant Days, I think, is the one that I'm the biggest fan of from all of Boom Studios' original lineup here. And I've collected all of the trades. It's about to end, and I think 1 or 2 more trade paperbacks. But to see that as the potential adventure, that could actually, you know what, that could also work as a live action one too, because you could take a Riverdale spin to it if you wanted, but it all takes place in college, so it could go either way. I'm just really happy in general with Boom Studios because they are an amazing publisher. They're very comic, retailer, and consumer friendly too.
I just want to take a moment to kind of marvel at how far Netflix has come. I know we talk about their shows all the time, right? That's all that we watch. But remember the days when you had to send in your DVD and they would send you another one?
Yeah.
And I feel like that wasn't that long ago. And now they've just, whoever has made these decisions is just genius to say, no, we're only going to go streaming. Now we're just going to make our own shit and we're going to make it great. And we're going to take these chances that you couldn't take anywhere else. And yeah, where else could have made a documentary about a Tiger King successful? Nowhere.
Do you remember when they had to put on the DVD sleeves to only put the DVD disc in there and nothing else? Because people were putting in Post-it notes with reviews and, like, this one wasn't very good. And
I do remember. I do remember. And then they had that where you could get both the DVD and the streaming for a while. Mm-hmm. Like, you had to choose, and now it's just streaming. Like, please, what did they do with all those DVDs?
Their DVD service is still running.
Stop,
What they tried to do was change the name to DVD.com or DVD Netflix instead of a separate thing. Mm-hmm. And then they were also going to split up the billing into two separate companies. And people fucking flipped out. And they eventually just went, nope, never mind.
JK.
I'm excited for Netflix. I'm excited for Boom Studios. Both great things I like and I enjoy.
Flipping on over to IDW, artist Evan Stanley will be taking over as both writer and artist in Sonic the Hedgehog, starting with issue number 33.
This one was immediately shared on our Discord server since we do have several Sonic the Hedgehog readers and fans on the Brokehead Core Lounge. Quote here from Evan Stanley. Quote, the world of Sonic has a truly amazing creative legacy, and I've always pushed myself to make my contributions as meaningful and worthwhile as they can be. And that's more important than ever now. I hope I can deepen the world of IDW Sonic the Hedgehog comics, exploring new places and characters while continuing to deliver exciting adventures about Sonic and his friends, end quote.
Meanwhile, previous writer Ian Flynn will be putting together a 4-issue miniseries titled Sonic Bad Guys.
We have had Ian Flynn on the podcast twice now, and so I was very curious about what was going to happen with Ian moving forward. I don't know if you guys listened to the Bumblecast, but he has been off of that for over a month now. He was really, really ill. And only recently he was able to return, and even then he wasn't able to return for the whole podcast. He just answered some questions at the very end. So I don't know if that has anything to do with this move from Sonic the Hedgehog. He had hinted at this Bad Guys miniseries before by saying he was working on something else on the side. So that's probably what it was, and he just couldn't announce it yet. But whenever they have an artist also do the writing, it doesn't always work out, like Sean Murphy, who is killing it on Curse of the White Knight. So I'm very curious to see how Evan Stanley does on Sonic the Hedgehog. And to be honest with you, I don't have any experience on Evan Stanley, so it's possible that he's been doing writing for Sonic before when it was an Archie product. I have no idea. But I will still absolutely be on the Sonic the Hedgehog comic book. The artwork is incredible in the books, in the covers, in the variants as well. And to see that Ian Flynn is at least still working in the world of Sonic in some capacity does make me very happy.
The miniseries of Sonic Bad Guys will explore where Dr. Starline goes after the Metal Virus saga.
An original evil villain that was originally one of, well, we have a quote here. It actually explains it all from Ian Flynn, who says, quote, it's been a thrill to see fans embrace the comic's original characters, and one of those fan favorites is Dr. Starlin. We've known him up until now as a diehard Eggman fanboy, but what happens when your idol outright disses you? End quote.
This doctor, tell me more about him. He sounds mysterious.
He's an evil scientist as well, but he is the one that's responsible for bringing Eggman back into this evil form because he had some memory loss. And he was like, no, we need Dr. Eggman to come back. And Eggman went overboard with the virus. And he was like, no, I need to separate myself from Eggman and do things on my own.
Is he this duck-looking guy?
That's him?
I just looked him up on Google. He's definitely gay for Dr. Robotnik. 100%.
Maybe. Could be. No street date has been given on these titles due to the publishing printing pauses. So just a heads up on that. Even though these companies are soliciting new titles, this does not mean it's going to hit comic shops next week. It doesn't mean that your comic shop isn't going to get it because it's closed. No comic shop is going to get it ahead of time from anyone else. These solicitations are always at the very least 3 months ahead of time. anytime you spot these before they hit the previews catalog, that usually means it is about a week or two ahead of when that previews actually hits. So this one in itself, these two titles, it will most likely be on the next catalog, but it could be at least a month before we actually see that catalog itself hit stores. But the title itself, not for at least 3 months.
Like you said, definitely something that we're going to check out. I want to know more about this mysterious doctor. I get that he looks like a duck, but I need to learn his secrets.
Well, you'll get the Sonic Bad Guys later this year with the 4-issue miniseries. You can read that and review it on here with me.
Perfect.
Final news story this week. Following just 11 eBay drawings from Jim Lee to benefit the Book Industry Charitable Foundation, also known as BINC, the total donated has surpassed $100,000.
That's amazing.
And that's only at the time of today's recording.
Before we get into Jim Lee's contribution and all the amazing artwork that he's created, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has contributed, because $100,000, that's a lot of money. That will help so many people who really need it right now. And that is one of the things that I'm most impressed with going on in this situation, is how much people just want to help out each other.
Even if you're not one that was able to bid or win one of these auctions, even a retweet helps out a lot, or even a like on Facebook or on Instagram is huge. So if that's one thing where it's like, you know what, I can't afford to bid on any of these, let me retweet that so that other people can see the auction, and maybe they retweet it to someone else that actually can outbid that higher bidder, and suddenly you've helped out in a huge way. So amazing stuff happening here.
The first 8 sketches that we've had, though, have been Nightwing, Bizarro, Azrael, Dr. Fate, The Batman Who Laughs, Big Barda, Doomsday, Batman Beyond, and Batman Red Rain.
Those 8 combined have raised $69,000 of those $100,000 that we've seen so far. Batman Red Rain topped out the bidding at an individual level. At the time of this recording, 10,800. I think it has another day left or so. But that one ended up beating the Batman Who Laughs, who at the time was the highest thing. The Red Rain one, were you able to see it online?
No, I don't think I know what Batman Red Rain is.
So that's the one in which he fights Dracula, he becomes a vampire.
Oh, okay.
But this piece in particular has him holding Catwoman. She's fainted in his arms, and he looks like he's about to bite her. And you get 2 characters in this piece as opposed to the other ones, which some of them did have multiples, but this one has both Batman and Catwoman, and I think that's why it did so well.
My heart, there's still a day. We need this.
You like Vampire Batman?
I do. My little middle school Twilight heart is awakening. It's thawing.
So this has all really blown up, especially because artists Brian Hitch, Arthur Adams, Sam Humphries, Ivan Rice, Tim Seeley, Cully Hamner, Gustavo Duarte, Joshua Williamson, Greg Capullo, and more, counting every single day. There's writers. Peter J. Tomasi just joined up today, have all contributed something to this campaign, with all proceeds going to BINC, which once again benefits comic book stores, comic book employees, also independent bookstores. That's where all of this is going to. I've already applied for help and assistance as well as a comic shop employee. If you're an employee of comic book stores or a bookstore, an independent bookstore, you can apply for this as well. And in a time where a lot of us comic stores are not considered essential, we're shut down. We're not collecting a paycheck, unfortunately. But then we have the comic book industry that all rallied up behind all of this in a huge way. Artists, especially, much like comic shop workers, are not in the industry because you'll become a millionaire from comic books. You won't. You really won't. You go, if you want to make serious money, you go into investments, right? But you go into comics because you love the medium. You have a passion for the characters, for the books. And this is why they've also, because name another fucking industry where people that work in it all rally together to share pieces and artwork for a good cause. It rarely happens, and it's happening huge in the comic book world.
I will sell my art to help.
You know what? I would be I'd be curious to see if your Buzz Lightyear would bring in anything. Very
it would
curious.
bring in so much. It would top Batman Red Rain. My Buzz Lightyear. The Brokettes can choose. Do you want to bid on my art? I will create some. You know what? You know what they would probably rather have is some crappy fan fiction. I would write a crappy fan fiction page and sell it.
A new Twitter account just got created to help with these auctions, and some of these do take place on eBay, some of them take place on Twitter, but it is at Creators for Comics, and the 4 is actually the number. So Creators, the number 4 Comics on Twitter. Make sure to follow them because they are also constantly retweeting. They're the official Twitter of this whole campaign.
Once again, amazing for me to see these people who work in this industry taking care of others, taking care of the people that they know that they would not be successful without, right? Because you don't have the shops and you can't sell your art, and what you're doing is for naught, and you wouldn't be able to have this role that you love. We see the same thing with restaurant workers. There's a lot of, I think Guy Ferrari is the one that I've seen recently who says, yeah, this is affecting our restaurant workers, our tipped employees. And he started a fund as well where they can reach in and apply and get what they need. Taylor Swift just sent $3,000 to some girl, and that's all she did.
T Swift.
But so many places, if you are in a position to help and you get something back out of it, yeah, why not? Absolutely.
That does round out our bit of news, as the comic and movie news and world have taken a bit of a standstill, but thankfully we still have amazing things happening, which we have discussed here. Let's head into our Patreon shoutouts of the week. More people who have come forward to help keep this show going.
This week we have 4 shout-outs. The first one goes out to @InsmouthTide.
Innsmouth tweeted out, quote, taking a break from Roland's toils in Midworld to read Luthor and Joker by Brian Azzarello and Bermejo, end quote.
I know none of those things, but it sounds great.
I think you read the Joker hardcover. It came out right around The Dark Knight, the movie, when that one released. And it's the one where the whole comic is told from the perspective of one of the thugs. And that's the one where Harley Quinn is a stripper and the Joker has the more Heath Ledger look to it. Or Heath Ledger has the Lee Bermejo look, however you want to kind of look at it. So did you ever read that one?
It doesn't sound familiar.
Okay.
Yeah, really. And I don't know. That was a long time ago. My mind, I'm so weak. My mind is so fuzzy. I'm so weak.
Yeah, it is. I did not read Luthor. I haven't read that one yet, but I did read Joker, and it is still one of the best-selling books out there if anyone just wants a one-off Joker movie. And it's another one that I think also got republished as under the Black Label titling. That's one that's on there. And Innsmouth also ended up upping his Patreon pledge to the $5 mark, which is awesome. All of this has put us, at the moment of this recording, $8 away from having our own Android app for the Reasons I'm Broke podcast.
That's amazing. Is the icon for the app just going to be my face? Like, hey.
It's the Brokehead Core logo, but you represent that. So in a way.
Okay, but could there be a setting where it can just be my face like, hey?
Not that I know of, no.
Well, we need to make the pledge a little higher then so we can afford this. Our next shout out goes out to Elizabeth, whose Twitter handle is @EPLifts.
Elizabeth said, quote, I have a stack of issues from March yet to read, but I keep buying trades and reading those instead, to support my FLCS. But when comics start to deliver, I'm going to be just as behind as always, end quote.
More power to you, Elizabeth. I support this because I too am behind on my comics because I keep purchasing other things.
I think it is the curse and rites of passage, I think, really, to being a comic collector. You always have to be behind on your reading. And even though I'm all caught up on my single issues, I'm behind on my trade paperback and hardcover reading, which is what I've been picking away at during this comics and quarantine period. Elizabeth and her husband her husband ended up buying some t-shirts for both of them and a mug from the Reasons I'm Broke podcast's TeePublic store, which also helps us out in a huge way, gets them some really cool, fashionable items that they can wear taking a page from Dead Channel Duo on their next interview. Wear that on the Reasons I'm Broke podcast on your interview, or a Dead Channel Duo t-shirt. Those will both go over really well. But I can't wait to see how they all turn out when they come in. And a huge thanks to Elizabeth for being a longtime backer, and to her husband as well for joining up on the Patreon pledge, and for getting some TeePublic merch.
I'm very jealous of her mug because I don't even have the Reasons I'm Broke mug. You would think of all people, or is every mug I have a Reasons I'm Broke mug? Ooh.
Is your Lapras one that I bought you a Reasons I'm Broke mug?
I feel like all my mugs are. Even though I don't have one with our logo. You have very many with our logo. You started decaling all of them.
That was all your idea from the beginning, too.
I know. Ugh, such a brilliant emperor I am.
Next shout out goes out to Joshua T on Instagram at JDTOS.
He said, quote, "Little man trying to be like dad while I'm deployed," end quote. And it was a picture of a camo onesie.
His baby with the camo onesie on.
How little baby?
Definitely under 1. Yeah.
Little baby.
Yeah. Has a ton of hair,
sweet.
too.
Good.
Yeah, just like little Leo when he was born.
Somebody I showed them a picture of baby Leo and all his hair, and they go, "What's that bad wig?" I'm like, "It's not a wig. It's a little hair."
But we also ended up dressing him up in little clothing versions of ourselves. He had the Reasons I'm Broke onesie that he wore once, a Batman one. He does have a Spidey one. You probably remember these better than I do.
I do. He had a lot. I bought way too many baby clothes. Way more than I should have. But yeah, definitely a lot of Batman. I still dress him in a lot of Batman. I go on the Target sales all the time and buy things about 2 sizes too big when they're on clearance. And that's how I get most of his clothes.
Smart shopping.
That's
Final
what I
shout
do.
out this week goes out to Nick F on Twitter at Jersey Whisperer and at Nick's Nerd News 1.
Nick said, quote, "I loved Tiger King, but getting Joe McHale to, quote, host this 8th episode has changed my mind," end quote.
At first I thought it was like a mistweet, and I had to ask him, I'm like, "Oh, really? So it wasn't a good episode?" Because we hadn't seen it yet at that point, and it had just come out. And yeah, he said that it felt more like a non-substantial addition to Tiger King.
Right.
And once I saw it, and thankfully I was prepared for that, I was like, yeah, there was nothing really new about this. The whole episode, and I don't know if McHale hinted at it at the very start of this, but he said he asked for like a high production way to host this new episode. And instead Netflix said, here's some iPhones and record on there. And that's what they ended up doing. It ended up being kind of like a recorded Skype call in high definition. But the questions were all, and it was just repeats of what was already in the documentary. Like, so your arm got ripped up, and what were you thinking during that time? And it's like, no, he went over this already during the documentary. Or how do you feel now being famous because of the documentary? Where are they now type of thing?
Right.
But none of them, there was no Joe Exotic. It was just someone at one point said, well, he's trying to get a hold of the computer and the internet so he can interact with his quote unquote fans is what I think it was Jeff Lowe that said it that way. And I'm like, we are his fans. Let's not pretend that we're all not really. No, we do. I would consider myself a Joe Exotic fan in spite of how the shitty things that he did. The things did come out in this 8th episode though, where he put down some animals that weren't sick, that didn't need to go because of old age. He just needed more room in his area and in his zoo, so he just killed off some animals. They talked about the horse that was donated by this owner because the horse was so old and she wanted the horse to have a place to run. And as soon as she left, they shot it and he fed it to the tigers and used it as food. And it's like, yeah, there's some awful fucking shit, but you know what?
But he's Joe Exotic.
But he's Joe
But
Exotic.
He's funny. There was also no Carol Baskin, and I feel like we only really cared about Joe and Carol.
Right. And she didn't want to be on it.
Right.
Because
of course not. Because the first question would have been, so did you really kill your husband?
Right.
And yeah, no, I 100% see why she didn't want to be on it. But I get that they were trying to, and not that it's not relevant anymore, but bring even more excitement. But yeah, what little I saw of it, because I was working on homework while you were watching that, it was just not anything that we needed. And the host was just sitting in his bathrobe in his house. And I'm like, could you have been in the bathtub? Because then it would have at least fit with the show.
That's right. So I ended up very much agreeing with Nick F. and several people out there who also didn't feel like it was really that essential an episode. But it is what it is. You know, it was already on Netflix. We saw it. And the documentary itself was super entertaining, and I'm sure we'll eventually start seeing like Hulu's version of it or Amazon's version of that, and it'll just be more Tiger King content for everyone. But aside from all of that, huge thanks once again to Nick F., Joshua T., Elizabeth, and Innsmouth Tide for your Patreon support this month.
If you too would like your shout out every single month, you can head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimebroke, and for as little as $1 a month, it's just 25 cents an episode, you too can have your shout out.
You can also be heard on the podcast. We have episode number 400 coming out next week. If you want to be heard on this milestone episode, we have SpeakPipe set up. It is over at speakpipe.com/thereasonsimbroke. And from your phone, from your computer, whatever you have with a microphone, you can call in to that SpeakPipe and be heard on the podcast. I think it's 90 seconds or less on the message on there. So definitely check it out. We also have a link on our Patreon in a public post. We had it for episode number 300, 100 episodes ago, and now we're at the next one with 400 episodes ever since we started in 2012.
Wow, that long ago?
Yeah,
Woof.
September 2012.
Can't believe it. Wow.
As I mentioned last week, a very personal thank you, especially from me who has yet to get the unemployment check to go through in Florida. And apparently a lot of people are having that trouble. So as of this moment, this is my only form of income. I guess you do have the Trump bucks that are, I guess, pending. So we'll see. But that's, as many people have said, it's not free fucking money. You know, it's all going to go to bills. It's going to go to a taxable thing later. I don't know. Some people are telling me it's not going to get taxed. Some saying it is going to be taxed at the end. Who knows? But it's all an absolute mess. And thankfully, a lot of you have come forth and helped out to the point where we're almost to the Android app, which I did not expect to get to this quickly. And it is huge. I've already put together the assets for the app. You had mentioned the icon. That's all done. The background, the promo graphic for the Android
icon
store.
Of my face.
The Google Store, Google Play Store as well. That's all done. So we're that close. I'm like, I might as well have that finished and ready because it's getting there. And I'm thinking we're gonna hit that with just $8 more.
Absolutely amazing. Cannot thank you enough for supporting us. And even if you don't support us through Patreon, you listen to us, you let your friends know about us, especially right now is a great time to get more brokettes on board. Say, hey, you're sitting at home, here's this great podcast. Listen to them. Daniel, I don't know, but that pal Kelli, she real cool.
You're right. Let's head into the final segment of today's show. It is what Pal Kelli and I have been reading and doing this week with the Brocat Block.
No Brocat questions this week.
No, maybe Bobby is sending one as we speak, but does this break his streak, Pal Kelli? He would have to submit 2 next week.
He does. He has to submit 2, and then I will pardon him.
This is like the second pardon you've given Bobby.
I can pardon whoever I want. I am the Palpa, the Emperor. I just pardon people all day long if I want to. Or
Can
maybe
you pardon
I don't.
Joe Exotic already?
No, because he deserves to be in there.
Oh, no. Come on.
He killed innocent animals. He made them tigers get busy and give birth only to pull it out of there. That set my mom's senses on fire. Like, no.
Can you pardon him so that we can at least get a second documentary or a break from it?
In 22 years, he can tell us his story about getting all that nice booty in prison.
No, he won't be alive in 22 years.
Maybe. He's only 50-something.
What all have you been reading and doing this week?
So many things. So I'm still working, and work is extremely stressful. And I took an extra day off last week, which I thought would help, and it did not help at all. But I mean, my place of work is getting more successful every day, and we're making more money because, we had that week of closure. So it just takes people a long time to realize, hey, they're reopened, we can go back and get coffee. So slowly getting back into it. School is still crazy busy. This is a very rough semester. I legitimately wish I could just pause and come back to it in 3 weeks. But of course you can't do that. And so I just got to power through it and get it done and maybe turn in things late and just kind of take a hit on it. And, it'll be fine. C's get degrees. So working through that, but I didn't really stumble. My favorite author posted on Facebook, hey, I started reading this book series and it was really great. And I was like, this book series, it's not as great as your books, but I'll try the first one. and just dove into this amazing world. And I know you're so sick of hearing me talk about it because all the time I'm like, oh my God, this is what happened. And part of the problem when I read books or watch movies is I pick up on all the little things, and so I can see where it's going, right? So I can be like, oh, well, they did this, and that means this will happen later. You point it out all the time where I'm like, yeah, they're going to fall in love. And you're like, no, they hate each other. I'm like, I know. And then they're in love by the end of it, right? And so same kind of thing with this where I just kind of saw a lot of things from the beginning, but there was still so much that I didn't see coming. And so many aha moments where I'd get to it and be like, oh my God, it's the story of Hades and Persephone. But of course, it took a whole book and a half to get to that point, right? And each book is, they give you a little average time down at the bottom, and I read extremely quickly. So it always starts out way higher and then goes down as I'm like reading through the pages. But each book is still, the first two were each like 6.5 hours, and this last one was like 11 hours is what it was estimating it would take me to read. So it's been a lot of reading, but they're so good. And like every chapter is better than the next. And I got to the end of the second one and I was like, oh, my heart, it can't go on. It just, there's too much going on and I can't continue. And then I read the last 2 chapters and I was like, fuck. And then I was hooked for the third.
Well, at least give them the name of the books.
I don't even know the names of them.
You don't know the name of the books or who wrote it or what website it's on? Nothing?
It's on Kindle Unlimited.
Okay.
I can look it up. I can tell you who wrote it, but they're so good. But it's like a fantasy romance. And it's something that I really enjoy it, but it was the kind of genre that I really, really liked when I was in high school in like my early 20s. I was obsessed with this kind of genre, but I've never read a book this good that fit into it. And I probably never will again because I just don't think it's possible, but it's just so good. And there's like a lot of war, a lot of, I don't know, not really filler, but like stuff where just romance isn't happening, right? They're like planning for war and they're doing all these things. And I usually don't go for that, but I'm like, yes, tell me more. How are you going to solve this? So good. That's been like my whole week is just.
That's every time I look at you, you're reading a page from that book.
And it's so good. I can't help myself because when I find a book, like it consumes all my all my thoughts. That's how you know when I found something really good is if I'm just reading every time you look at me.
I've been doing some trade paperback and hardcover reading. Paul Dini did a Dark Knight, a true Batman story, and has art by Eduardo Risso, who ended up putting up on Instagram. I put up like a selfie of the hardcover because I really liked it. It was a 2017 Eisner Award winner. So there's a fun fact that Paul Dini can put that on his resume. That's an amazing little award there. And I reread that. It is essentially the spiral of Paul Dini. He got severely beat up when he was working on Batman the Animated Series. It was shortly after they won the Emmy Award for Robin's Reckoning. And he got so beat up on the streets by these 2 guys where he needed to go to the hospital for surgery. And he took a lot of time off work and stayed at home and was so traumatized by this event and afraid of going out that he just stayed indoors all day, drank himself like crazy. And the way that the comic visualizes all of this and his struggle is there's these different villains that represent these Batman villains that represent his different doubts and ideas. And they're all telling him things like Poison Ivy saying, she doesn't really love you. It's because you're this famous writer, and putting that doubt in his head. And then the Joker saying, you've worked hard enough. You went through some hard times. Have another drink. Sit back down. And throughout this entire story, Batman tells him the same thing of, get up, go to work. Just constantly telling him that same thing until he can finally overcome that. And it is an incredible story, really, really well written, and I think a great testimony to what one can overcome after such a traumatic event, especially after he ends up seeing these 2 people again. So it's amazing. I really enjoyed that one, and it's a darker read, so just a heads up. And then I started reading the Jeff Johns Omnibus for Volume 1. Mm-hmm. They finally collected all of the 9 years of Jeff Johns' comic books, or at least they're starting to collect them in like this nice, cohesive way. Whereas before you had to know, okay, Green Lantern Rebirth is the first one, and then Secret Origin is the next one. They were not numbered. It was just broken down by story arcs, and you had to know the order. but they finally put them in numbered order in these thick omnibuses. There's 2 out so far, and they're eventually going to go through all of it, including the New 52, which is the tail end of his entire Green Lantern run. And I'm subscribed to those.
Craggle finger?
Yeah, with Sinestro's little finger. Yeah,
I really don't think his finger ever shows up. I feel like we looked back and it wasn't there.
it's his hand, like it's his whole hand.
Can I just pretend it's his finger?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
And it's so good to just go back and see the artwork by Ethan Van Sciver, the writing by Jeff Johns, and just these early days of quote unquote early days of comics in Jeff Johns' career, because he took the Green Lantern and all of this lore behind him and brought back Hal Jordan in a huge way, explained the way how the yellow color was a weakness to them and how that used to disable them and why that's no longer the case. Eventually they make it so that Green Lanterns can murder. It's just an amazing way to not reboot everything, but to explain it all and progress the story into a modern way. And in the end, it ends up being the story of Hal and Sinestro. Sinestro ends up growing in a huge way and makes him my second favorite villain in the DC in comics, really.
Who's your first favorite?
Ra's al Ghul.
Oh, I knew that. Duh, Kelli. Oh my God.
So I'm loving that, and I can't wait to finish the first volume and get into the second one just so I can go, where the hell's the third one?
Now you know how I feel with my books.
Not on that level.
I just looked up the author, by the way. It's Sarah J. Maas, Maas, and it's the book series, so it's 3 of them, is A Court of Thorns and Roses. 3 parts.
I guess that kind of sounds like Court of Owls.
Pretty close, but nothing like this. This is definitely a fantasy romance, but it's so good.
On a more personal side, I am ready to go back to work. I am I'm spiraling a little bit. It's tough. That's my personal update right now. How about you?
It's tough when we have our days off and we're like, okay, what are we going to do? Well, I guess we'll just stay home or, just doing the same things. Leo's ready. We drove past Baby Jim today and he was like, hey, let's go there. And we're like, oh, sorry, kiddo. Like, it doesn't exist. So from what I'm hearing and what I'm learning, we're kind of getting over the hump of this, right? We have about 2 more weeks where everything's 100% in lockdown, but I'm hopeful that things will start to reopen at that point and we can get back, into a really good flow of things. I did it was funny. So my particular coffee shop, there's a big back room in the back that my boss uses as his office. And he's like, nobody can have breaks in here. Like, that was kind of my first day taking over that store. He's like, this is, we use this for certain things and it's not for breaks and for people hanging out in X, Y, and Z. So I kind of took that to me as like, okay, when I do my work, it needs to not be in there. Right. And I was talking to him and he's like, how is everything? I said, listen, I'm crazy stressed. Like, I have this homework and stuff at home and work is stressful and just trying to keep up with everything. And he goes, well, you can work from home if you need to. Like, just take a day and work from home. I said, I won't get anything done if I'm at home. He's like, well, then you can work in here. And just kind of gave me permission if that's what I needed to do, which, was very kind of him. But everybody's kind of in the same boat. We're all ready to be past this. We're, as much as we love our kids and our families, like we need time apart too, right? And every single person that I'm talking to is just like, yep, I'm happy I get to come into work. Or when they come through my drive-thru, oh, are you headed into work? No, I'm off of work, but I just had to get out for a minute. I just had to go and do something different than being at home and staring at the same things. And yeah, I get it. We're all kind of going a little crazy. So I'm happy that I have the opportunity to go to work. But again, it's such a stressful time because it's different information every single day. Since 2 weeks ago, 35 things have changed. And trying to get all that information down the ladder to us is extremely difficult, and trying to keep up with all of that and contact the 20 people of mine who are staying at home and don't want to answer my phone calls until I text them and say, I'm calling your emergency contact in the morning if you don't text me back. So yeah, it's just a lot going on. one of the really great things, though, that I did, because I go over and I see my dad a lot, and we were talking to him, and he's following all the economists and all that kind of stuff. And economists are like, yeah, it's bad now, but as soon as this is over, the economy is just going to explode. Like, everybody's going to go back out. Everybody's going to be buying things if they can, and we'll get back to where we were pretty quickly.
Well, that's good news if that ends up happening. I think the last thing I have is when we end up going back to work, we have to wear masks, and I'm not excited for that shit.
No, they're horrible. They're the worst. I've been wearing them all week. Absolutely terrible.
And we have to wear gloves as well. So
Oh. Can you wear some OJ leather gloves? Like, did he specify what kind of gloves?
No, he did not.
All right.
And I expressed my displeasure at this, and that's all I could do. And I argued my case, but whatever.
I mean, you can have a cool mask with like Bulbasaur on it.
I'm not
going
to fucking theme out my fucking mask.
Why not?
Because it's not a fashion I said it last week. This isn't a vacation. Like, I'm not going to theme out I'm more concerned on whether or not the mask is at all use doing anything. And even if it is, it won't be because I have to wear goggles for it to do something.
The problem is the CDC released that thing that said any kind of facial covering you can get, even if it's just a cloth mask, will help a little bit.
Like I said last week, if I'm forced to wear it, I'm only going to wear it at work. I'm not going to wear it when I'm out and about.
No.
It makes no difference. I'm going to get sick if someone comes in contact with me anyway, whether or not I have a mask. The mask is not going to protect me for it. So if I'm forced to wear it at work, then so be it. But that's my adding to my frustrations for the fucking week.
Wear it to work or stay home with Leo longer.
I don't know. It seems
It's frustrating. I mean, I get it. Like when they told us, hey, starting tomorrow, everybody's got to wear a mask, I was like, this sucks. But I don't sign my paycheck, right? And so
right.
I wear it and I don't like it and it's warm and my face breaks out and I constantly want to touch it and move it and you have to wash your hands every single time you do that. And thankfully, they're not making me wear gloves all the time because I hate gloves.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely hate them. Hate this facial covering. I'll be glad when it's gone. But that's the world right now, right? And you got to jump through hoops and we hate it. But the sooner we do that, the sooner it goes away.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just saying that I'm expressing my displeasure at all of this. So, do you have anything else before we close out today's episode?
No, I'm going to make you a Bulbasaur mask, though. It's going to be great.
Well, I'm not going to wear it. I'll put it up, though. I'll put it up on Bulbaganda and I'll tag him. If you want to make one, I'll just have it as a decorative piece. I'll put it on one of my Bulbasaur plushes. How about that?
Okay, perfect. I'll make them a mask.
So thank you all so much for joining us on today's episode, on this week's episode. And I also hope you enjoyed the string of bonus podcasts. As of right now, those are, I think they're done, the twice a week ones, as we hopefully ramp up into eventually going back into work. But we're instead shifting into the Batman the Animated Series commentaries, which Papa Kelli is actually going to be jumping in on the Underdwellers episode.
The Underdwellers!
And probably anything with Harley Quinn, I'm guessing.
100%. Of course.
So look out for those. They're going to go up on Patreon first, and then 4 weeks later, they'll go up publicly. So if you don't want to wait 4 fucking weeks for just $1 a month, patreon.com/thereasonsimBroke, you get the commentary episodes a full month early.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for joining us once again. I've been interviewer Daniel.
And I am Emperor Papa Kelli.
And Broke at Core.
All will be well. I am ready for my interview. Give me the hard-hitting questions.
One hard-hitting question I have, and I saw it on a Dragon Ball group. Who is stronger and
Vegeta.
why? Goku or Vegeta?
Vegeta.
See, I would argue that they're different fighters completely. Like, Goku is always going to be stronger as far as power level, but I think Vegeta develops all of the different skills instead. I don't know. There's an argument for both, but why do you say Vegeta?
Because I like him better. No, what your statement was very accurate. Goku is stronger on a power level, but he just kind of develops these things. They just kind of happen because that's how they write him. We've talked about it before, but Vegeta actually teaches himself these things and he doesn't get it from somebody else. He doesn't have somebody teach him. He doesn't have somebody give him the ability. He actually says, okay, this is where I need to go. Let me get there. And he does. But on the flip side, if you're going to talk about strength, I don't think we can talk about just physical strength.
Here we go.
I think we need to talk about emotional strength and how Vegeta went from a cold-blooded killer who watched his entire race get wiped out and to live with all that guilt and to turn around and have a semi-functioning family, maybe not well-functioning in the way that we would think, but probably way better functioning than he ever thought he would have.
Here's another hard-hitting question now, because I've seen this pop up because Vegeta's popularity has also gone up and spiked up.
It's over 9,000. So.
There's now a lot of people saying, that's great that he turned around and now he's a good person. He's helping save the world, but that does not excuse the thousands of people that he murdered in the name of Frieza and in the Saiyans. All of those things are still inexcusable.
Yeah, but I will argue two things. One, when he was under Frieza's rule, he was kind of forced to, right? You kind of had to. So
he was kind of evil, though.
I won't disregard that. But the second thing is he also grew up in a warrior race. So for him, conquering these worlds, murdering these people wasn't necessarily a bad thing. So do you judge him by our standards and say, hey, you killed all these people and that was a bad thing? He was raised, one, saying if they're lesser than you, we just kill them. And then two, Frieza took over him and said, well, you have to kill them or I'm going to kill you, like you're enslaved now, right? And his dad sold him to Frieza, asshole. He was just like, here, take my 9-year-old kid or whatever. But then he got to Earth and learned and said, well, this is where I am now. This is who I choose to be. Yeah, I'm not going to do those things anymore. So does it excuse that he murdered those people? No. But if it was the only way you were raised, if it was the only thing you knew, and then you learned something new and you said, yeah, that wasn't right, and you changed it, then who's the real winner here? Where's the real strength?
And those are your talking points, America, for tonight's debate. We will join you again next week as we lead up into the Palpa elections in November, where Palpa Kelli is the one and only nominee.
Palpa 2020.